Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be free from diseases. May all see only goodness everywhere. May no one suffer. May there be peace and abiding peace everywhere by God's grace. This is my prayer. It is an old Sanskrit prayer from our scriptures. So the subject of my talk this evening is how to recognize truth. Well, according to philosophy, this is a philosophical question actually. And according to philosophy, there are three methods of experiencing truth. First of all is direct perception. The second one is inference. And the third one is reliable testimony. Well, had I been looking, as I am in Seattle, had I been looking around, then my view will be obstructed by some mountains. So if it so happens that when I am looking at the mountain, which is covered by forests, my direct perception gives me the impression that I am looking at a forest up on the hill. Then by direct perception also, I see something happening there. Through the forest, I see some smoke coming out through the trees. That must be true because I have directly perceived that smoke. Then something I come to know as true, which I have not really seen. And that is from inference. That is, if there is smoke, there must be fire there. So therefore, as I have seen smoke, there must be fire there which is not seen by me. And these two, so through perception and inference I can recognize truth. But what about reliable testimony? And our scriptures, particularly in the Chandogya Upanishad, we have the story of Satyakama, who was the son of a lady named Jabala. So, Satyakama wanted to go to his teacher's home to have the knowledge of God. In those days, that would be done. And then, but he knew that had he gone to a teacher, the teacher would ask him about his ancestry. So he wanted to know about his ancestries. So he asked his mother, "Who was my ancestor?" Then she said, "Well, you had, I had intimate physical contact with many men. So I'm not sure who is your father really. So I cannot tell you about your ancestry." So when the teacher will ask you about your ancestry, you say that you are the son of Jabala. That will be your answer. And that boy Satyakama was truthful. He went to his guru, Gautama was his name. And when Gautama asked him about his ancestry, then Satyakama told him that he didn't know who his real ancestor was, because his mother had intimate physical connection with many men, and so she didn't really know who was my father. And Gautama said, the teacher Gautama said, your father must have been a Brahmin, because Brahmins are truthful. So you are being truthful, therefore you have inherited that tendency from your father. He must have been a Brahmin. Then this Guru Gautama pointed out a number of cattle to Satyakama and said to him, well, what teaching will I give? Okay, do one thing. Take these cattle out and let them graze to the grazing grounds. You take this cattle, and when that number will be 1,000, then you come back to me. And then Satyakama obeyed his teacher to the letter. Then he went out. And then strange things started happening to Satyakama. Because in those days they used to light fires in the morning. And there they would cook things. So Satyakama, when he lit the fire, then the fire started talking to Satyakama and gave him some teachings about God. And then another day, a bird, a loon, alighted before Satyakama. That loon gave Satyakama some teachings. Then one of the bulls of that group of cattle also gave some teachings about God to Satyakama. That's how Satyakama kept on learning about God from these sources. And then one day, one of the bulls told him that our number has become 1,000. Now it is your time to go to your teacher. So Satyakama came back to his teacher. And by seeing the face of Satyakama, Gautama said, your face is shining like one who has experienced divinity. You have that shine on your face. So tell me, who has helped you to experience divinity? Then Satyakama told his teacher that a fire and a bull and a bird, they all taught him certain things. Then the teacher was very pleased to hear it. The moral of this story is that one has to follow the truth. And if one follows the truth, then eventually he will experience divinity as truth. Because God is also said, Satyasya Satyam, and also Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That means God alone is the truth of all truths. That is there in our scriptures. I will talk about these things a little later. In Chandogya Upanishad we read about Satyakama. And then about reliable testimony, how reliable testimony can help one to know the truth. About that I have to tell you something. Because I was born at a time in India when we were not born in maternity hospitals. I was born at home. That was many years ago. And so I had no birth certificate. But my parents, particularly my mother, knew about my birth date and everything. Accordingly, when I grew up, I went to school and colleges, then my birth date had to be used, and the birth date I had come to hear from my parents what it was. So at that time I had become a member of the Ramakrishna Order of monks, and the order decided to send me to the United States to serve the children of God in the United States. Then, but I needed a US visa. But how to get it? I approached the US Embassy in Calcutta. Now it is called Kolikata, I think, or Kolkata. Then the US Embassy said, we want to know exactly what your birth is. Show us your birth certificate. Then I told the embassy that I did not have any birth certificate given by anyone except what I obtained from my school. They said that is not reliable. And I was not born in a hospital, maternity hospital, so no maternity hospital would give me a birth certificate. Then the US Embassy said, if your mother gives her testimony that you are so many years old, then we will accept that as your age. So for the sake of getting my US visa, I wrote to my mother, who was 80 years old, and she was living in that holy place called Banaras. And there I explained to her why I needed my birth certificate given by her, because her testimony would be reliable. Then after a few days I got her testimony. That is, on such and such date I was born and so on. And it was validated by a magistrate who had come in to take this, to record this account given by my mother. So with the help of that, I got my US visa. There was no problem. So my mother's testimony was reliable testimony. So it was considered as true. Okay. Then also I have to say something else. That is, something which is true is real. If I say, look out and see an elephant flying through the air, then that will not be considered true, because that elephant flying through the air is not something that anybody can perceive, or on that's why it is not possible. So, but in the book on philosophy, it is in Indian philosophy, it is written that what is real is truth. Truth is real. And what are the signs of reality? That is, something which is real has to be changeless and eternal. Something which changes is not real. Then, according to this definition of reality, I am not real, because I used to be a little child and I have grown physically. My body has changed. My mind also has changed. So I am not supposed to be real. And will I be eternal? I don't think so, because most people eventually die. And our scriptures also say, know your death to be certain and get ready for that mentally. How to face death with dignity. Anyway, so to be real, something has to be eternal. Then I may say that this definition is not very reliable, because am I not real? I changed physically and all. Still I am real, I am the same person. And will I be eternal? No, I will not be. Still I am real. Then the philosopher, teacher of mine, will say, no, you also judge reality using these true criteria. Suppose you see a creature like a little rabbit, it keeps on changing its form every 5 seconds. It becomes a puppy, then it becomes some other animal. Every 5 seconds it keeps on changing. Then if I have to know what it is really, then I would want it not to change. Because of its changing nature, I cannot know what it actually is. And then this is also not eternal. Something which is eternal has to be true, that's what scriptures say. And so if I see an elephant, African elephant, in the backyard of our center, and then that is there for maybe 15 minutes, at that time it seems to be real. Then suddenly it vanishes into thin air. Then I know it was not real. But had it gone on existing forever, could I say that it was not real? No. So even when I judge reality, I judge reality using these two criteria: changelessness and eternity. So is there anything which is like that? Our scriptures say that judging by this definition of reality, God alone is real. God alone is real. Because God is beyond time, space and causation. When this world was not there, God was there. And then from God, this world evolved. Time, space and causation came. Before this creation, there was no time, no space, no causation. But divinity was there. That divinity was beyond time, space and causation. Divinity was eternal. That's why our scriptures say, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That means divinity. Brahma is divinity. It is the real truth. It is supreme knowledge also. India, I was born in India, and when India was not a free country, it was under the British rule. Then eventually the British left India and then Indian government was formed. And before the independence, there was a lot of idealism all over India, because one of the renowned leaders of independence movement was Mahatma Gandhi. He was very truthful, and we were all taught to be truthful. I remember when one of our national leaders, he went out of India during British period, and his name was Subhash Chandra Bose, and then he was helped the Japanese government to start a flight, start a battle against the British by using the Indian soldiers who had been made captive by the Japanese soldiers. So with those prisoners of war, Netaji Bose started an army called Indian National Army, and that was in Singapore. He was at that time in Singapore, or in short INA. And at that time he introduced the slogan, "Victory to India," and in Hindi, Jai Hind. And it became very popular among those who were in British India. And we had then children at that time. We used to greet each other by saying Jai Hind, Jai Hind. But the British were still there, so they would not like these sayings by us. So one day when we were in high school, that was a government high school and the best high school in the entire province. The principal was British. He was educated in England. Anyway, so, but the teachers, they had been educated by the British teachers. They're mostly Indian. So we got inspired. So one day, at the request of my friends, I wrote on the blackboard with chalk in big letters. My handwriting was considered good, so I wrote Jai Hind. And then our class teacher, the first teacher who would teach us, would be called class teacher. And class teacher Kiran Bihari Gupta came. And he saw that. And he saw that and said, "Who wrote it?" Then these students were quiet. Then he said, "Simply writing on the board will do. How many of you are prepared to give your lives for the freedom of the country? Stand up." Then it was surprising because all the students in the class stood up. And that impressed the teacher, Kiran Bihari Gupta. Then he kept quiet and he said, "It is all right then. But the headmaster will not like if he sees this writing on the board. So please wipe it out." So then we wiped out that writing, Jai Hind, from the board. But it was not wiped out from our minds. Victory to India. Yes. So that was India. And when India became free, then its national anthem was Satyameva Jayate Nanitam. That is from the scriptures. Truth alone triumphs, not untruth. And at that time there was a prince named Karan Singh. He became a minister of the federal government of India. And he was a good speaker. And after the independence he came to our headquarters, which is in Belur Math near Calcutta, and he gave a talk. During that talk he said, "Alas, that is our national principle. That is, truth alone triumphs, not untruth. Satyameva jayate nanitam." But unfortunately, the condition of our government now is such that mithya eva jayate na satyam. That is, it is lying which it is lying which is victorious. That's what Prince Karan Singh said. So most probably that was the condition at that time in India after gaining freedom. And I have seen that there are many among our Swamis, there are some Swamis who are examples of those who have spoken the truth for many, many years. Truly speaking, since the day I joined the monastic order, I didn't have to tell a single lie. But before that I was a government servant, I was a government auditor. At that time I had to sometimes write white lies. But that was not the case when I joined this monastic order. I have always spoken the truth. And it is mentioned in our scriptures that those who speak the truth for 12 years, if something comes out of their mouth, some words, those words also become true. I have seen that happen in case of many of our Swamis in India. There was one Swami, his name was Swami Krishnathananda. We'd call him Purno Maharaj. And at that time I was a young novitiate monk of the Shillong center. And Swami Krishnathananda came there. And our Shillong center used to do relief work here and there also. So there was some flood in Assam and then some places were affected. So our order started working there. And there is a Swami who became Hemanta Maharaj. And I, as a brahmachari, we were sent there to supervise that work. So that was in a place called Rangia. And in those days, our monks could not fly through the air because they didn't have money. They had to come by train, paying third-class fare. And one Swami, his name was Krishnatmananda, he came from the headquarters, which is in Belur Math. He had been sent by the monastic order to go to the Shillong ashrama and work there. Krishnatmananda. He had heard that we were doing some relief work there in Rangia. So he retrained there and he came to see us. But that was the time when we had been arranging to go back to Shillong because our work had been done. And then our bags were packed and everything. Then Swami Krishnatmananda came here. And we told him that he had come at a time when our work is already over. Then he said, all right then, so let us go back. But we are supposed to go by train to Guwahati and from there by bus to Shillong. It's a pretty long trip. And Swami Krishnathananda said to us, if somebody sends a car for us, then we can go by that car. We said, no, I don't think anybody will send in car. But no, the chief minister of Assam, chief engineer of Assam, Shamapada Chaudhary, he came to our relief center and he had heard that we had been doing relief there. He also heard, and he had with him a large car and a driver who was driving his car, he came. And he heard that we are getting ready to go back to Shillong. Then he said, my car is very large, so all your baggage can be accommodated there. Sorry. And our car can take the two of you and myself, and we can go back to Shillong. So he took us to Shillong. When Swami Krishnathananda said to us, somebody would come and pick us up and take us to Shillong, it was hard for us to believe in that, but his words came true. Not only these words, many other things which he had said came true. Once in Shillong, there was a brahmachari who had been given a camera by one of the devotees of that center. In those days, cameras were very rare, and he had been given a camera made in Germany. And in those days, nowadays everybody has a camera. The cell phone is a camera, but it was not that way at that time. So then that brahmachari was very enthusiastic. He wanted to take our pictures. He made us all stand as a group, and he said, "I will like to take your picture." Then when he was taking the picture, Swami Krishnatmananda said, "Wait and see if any picture comes." And lo and behold, that when that film was sent to a photography shop, they tried to develop it, but there was nothing there. It looked like inside the camera some dark paper had come out and had obstructed the route of light to enter the photography lens. And so there was no picture at all. So Swami Krishnatmananda's words came true. His words should come true. In many cases I have seen. He was truthful. Then I can tell you the story of Brahmachari Gyan Maharaj. He was a disciple of Swami Vivekananda. I saw him when he was very elderly, and we respected him highly because of his spiritual life. Then there was a brahmachari named Sitangshu. He was helping in the headquarters office. So for some reason he had to go to Calcutta to collect something from there. And then it was very warm day, sunny. And then he came to Brahmachari Gyan Maharaj and said to him, "Maharaj, I am to go to Calcutta in this heat and in this sunny, this is a sunny day and it is going to be hotter every day. I wish that there was some rain. Please bless us so that we can have rain." Brahmachari Gyan Maharaj said, "I don't have such power. I don't want occult power or anything." But Sitangshu went on requesting him, "No, please, please, please." Then Brahmachari Gyan Maharaj said, "All right, if you want, if it be the will of Sri Ramakrishna, then there will be rain." The sky was azure blue. There was no trace of cloud everywhere. Then Sitangshu went by bus to Calcutta. And then around noon some storm came, and along with that came clouds and abundant clouds, and there was rain, heavy rainfall. So much rain that on the street a little bit of water accumulated. So Brahmachari Sitangshu was happy to see that Brahmachari Gyan Maharaj's wish had been fulfilled. And this Brahmachari Sitangshu later on became Swami Mahananda. And he was interested in astrology. He wanted to know one day, when he was a brahmachari, he wanted to know what my birth date was and all this. So I gave him. Then he calculated and he said, "Oh, you will have many daughters." I started laughing. He said, "I'm a monk, how can I have daughters?" But then some other elderly Swami said, "Who knows, someday you most probably have to give initiation to many girls and they will be your spiritual daughters." And that's what actually happened. under compulsion, I have had to give it as spiritual initiation to some girls and some ladies. And so to them I am like their spiritual father. But I know that Sri Ramakrishna is their father. And the Holy Mother is their mother. But nevertheless, this is what Brahmachari Sitangsha or Mohananda told me that might happen to me. Well, so truth. How to recognize truth? These are some ways of recognizing truth. So one has to be very careful while talking to a holy man, because if he says something that may come true. So this is, I thought that these are the things I would talk about this evening, and I have already spoken for nearly 40 minutes. I'm supposed to speak for half an hour only. Thank you for your patience. So, how to recognize truth, that was the subject of my talk. And I think I have been able to do some justice to that topic. Thank you all so much.